Well, greetings, friend, and welcome back to Beyond the Type. Today, we are going to dive into one of the trickiest, most misunderstood, and most powerful skills we have as human beings, and that is communication. This sounds so simple, right? You say some words, I say some words back, and voila, understanding. But if you have ever had a text message that spirals into misunderstanding, or maybe you left a conversation thinking, that is not at all what I meant, then you know it's not that simple. So communication is actually one of the most complex things we do, and what we believe to be true about communication can cause a lot of unnecessary friction. And communication is also one of the hot topics in my coaching sessions, in my coaching conversations. It comes up a lot. So for my clients out there listening, this is mostly for you, but also for everyone else listening. So in this episode, we're going to look at some common myths and pitfalls of communication, some science and research that bust those myths wide open. We're going to look at how body awareness and presence shape the way we connect. And finally, I'll offer a few simple practices because I love leaving you all with some tips and tools and tricks and practices. I'm going to leave you with a few things you can try right away that will hopefully improve your communication. So let's get into it. So one of the most common myths about communication is that it's mostly about words. Studies show that words are just one piece of the puzzle. I'm sure you've all heard about the importance of body language. So yeah, that's important too, as well as tone, facial expression, even silence. These all send really powerful signals. And this is also why I do not like coaching over the phone. I think if everyone had old school landlines, it would be different, because on those old school landlines, yes, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up talking on the phone with that squirrely, spirally cord stretched all the way around the corner from the kitchen upstairs into the hallway. My legs were up the wall. I'd be talking on the phone for hours with my friends. And I could hear everything. I could hear all those sighs, those subtle shifts. I don't know about you, but I don't get that. I don't get that on cell phones these days. Cell phone reception sucks. There's too much noise, both literally and figuratively. There's a lot of distractions. And that distracts us from having really good conversations. I like to be able to see body language and facial expressions, even eye movement. So these can all be great clues as to what a person is thinking and feeling. So another myth is that clarity equals agreement. So just because someone understands what you're saying, it doesn't mean they agree with you. This is where conversations often derail when we assume that understanding equals buy-in. I remember one time on LinkedIn, there was someone who connected with me, and I'm always happy to connect with anyone. If you're on LinkedIn, Swanson Coaching is where you can find me. But this person connected with me and they started commenting on all of my posts. Now, I didn't necessarily agree with him, but there was some validity to his words. And I conveyed this in my responses to his comments. I was saying, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, after the 2024 election here in the US, it became apparent that I didn't agree with him, even though I heard him. And he flipped out because he mistook my understanding of what he was saying for agreement with what he was saying. And then there's the good communicators are born, not made myth. And that's like saying only some people are born with the ability to drive a car. Anyone can drive a car. It's a skill. Communication is a skill. You can practice it. You can refine it. You can get better at it, just like any other skill. So Charles Duhigg has a newish book out called Super Communicators. And in that book, he talks about how people who connect deeply aren't necessarily the smartest or most articulate. They are the ones, however, who recognize what kind of conversation they're in. So, are we exchanging information? Are we trying to solve a problem? Is one person just needing to vent? So once you know the game you're playing, you can communicate much more effectively. So let's talk about some pitfalls that we all fall into when it comes to communicating. So one big pitfall is assuming we are being clear. Most of us think we are clearer than we actually are. So coaching skills like looping back or reflecting, these help us check in to see if the other person really heard what we meant. This just means repeating back what you heard for understanding. Or if the person you're talking to doesn't reflect or loop back to you what you said, instead of asking, do you understand? Which most people will always say yes to even if they don't, you can say, so what are you taking away from what I just said? And this creates a shared reality instead of two parallel monologues that might not have anything in common. So another pitfall is to react rather than respond. And this is so very common. Our nervous systems are wired to protect us from threat. And sometimes another person's tone or body language registers as a threat, even when it's not. So this is where body awareness and presence matter. So when you're grounded in your body, you can pause before reacting, and you can choose a more skillful response. And this is a huge focus in nonviolent communication as well. Marshall Rosenberg's work reminds us to separate observation from evaluation or judgment or opinion, and also to identify the feelings and needs beneath the words. So, for example, you never listen to me, that's a judgment. And instead, to say, when I was talking to you and you looked at your phone, I felt disconnected. That's an observation plus a feeling. And that opens the door to real understanding because we're talking about facts and we're talking about feelings, and everyone understands feelings. Nonviolent communication is something I share in my group coaching programs as well as with my private clients. And we practice in real time what those conversations might sound like because they can be really awkward at first. Practicing anything new can be a little awkward. So going back to being grounded, let's talk about body awareness and presence. So just think about your last heated conversation. And what was your body doing in that conversation? Were your shoulders all hunched up? Was your jaw getting tight? Did you feel your stomach knot up? I remember a phone call from a family member many, many years ago, and they were really upset about something I said in an email, and I admit it was because I was really sloppy in my written communication at that time. But this family member called, and on this phone call, my stomach got so tight, and my throat did too. I just sort of froze. So our bodies are interesting. They're always broadcasting information to ourselves and to others. And the problem is here that most of us, well, we're not paying attention to our bodies. I know I wasn't during that conversation. And then there's presence. So presence meaning the ability to fully be here, not to be rehearsing your next line or not to be spinning in anxiety. And presence can be magnetic. So people feel it. There's a vibe if you are present. When you slow your breathing, when you ground your feet on the floor, and you really tune in, you become a better communicator because you are actually available to the other person. I remember working with a coach, and she had submitted a session for me to review for coaching certification. And she was sitting kind of cross-legged in her chair, and she'd kind of shift and she'd pull one knee up and she'd kind of hug her knee. And it was, well, number one, it was distracting, but it was obvious she wasn't present. And so getting your feet on the floor can really help you be present. It sounds simple, but it's true. Try it. Next time you're in a meeting, next time you're talking to someone, even if you're standing, notice your feet on the floor. Get present. It can be super magical. I work on my presence as a coach so I can be there 100% for my clients. And when my clients are present in return, it is magical. I feel it. I love it when my clients are present, and not all of them are. It's so easy. It's so easy to get lost in our heads and lost in our thoughts or in the external world around us. There's a lot of distractions. So work on your presence. Whatever it takes to ground yourself in the here and now, this will help your conversations immensely. So one of my favorite tools for understanding communication better is, of course, the Enneagram. Yes, I'm going there today. So each of the 9 types has a unique communication pattern, communication strengths, blind spots. Some types will lean into being direct, maybe too direct. Others will avoid conflict at all costs. Some will over-explain. Some will ask questions over and over again, while others get lost in emotions. Now, I won't go into the full details today about the communication styles of each of the 9 Enneagram types, because I'm actually saving that for a free live training I'm hosting on September 17th, 2025. So it's called More Effective Communication Through the Lens of the Enneagram. So in this training, I'll be walking you through each of the 9 types, or energies as I call them, and how they tend to show up in communication. And I'll be sharing adjustments that you can use to connect more effectively with each type, whether at home, at work, or even in your closest relationships. So this is going to be a very practical training, and it should be pretty fun. So consider this your teaser, because that's where we'll really dive in to type by type Enneagram communication. And you can register for that training at swansoncoaching.com/training. I will leave a link for that in the show notes as well. So let's end this episode with a few practices you can take forward into your week. So the first is reflecting or looping back. This is what I mentioned earlier. So after someone shares, say, "So what I hear you saying is XYZ," and reflect back what you hear. And it's amazing how often people will say, "Well, not actually, no, it's not exactly that, it's this," which will get you closer to true understanding, and trust that they will tell you if you're wrong. More often than not, they will. So the second practice is to pause in the body. So before responding, take one slow breath and notice your body. Where is the tension? Can you soften into your shoulders? Can you soften into your gut? Just 5%. So this micro pause can prevent a reactive blow-up. So the third practice is to be conscious of the point of the conversation. So what's this conversation about? Is it about our relationship? Is it about information? If it's about the relationship, perhaps there are emotions that need to be explored, or maybe one person just needs to vent. If it's about information, is it an exchange of information? Is it sharing information on one side? Is it problem solving? Figure out the point of the conversation. And finally, I invite you to practice needs-based language. So instead of, you always, or you never, try to say, "So when this happens, I feel XYZ because I need 1, 2, 3. So this is nonviolent communication as well, and it shifts the dynamic from blame to collaboration. So communication, it is messy, it is imperfect, and I think it's endlessly fascinating. I love communication, and it's not about getting it right all the time. It's about being willing to keep practicing, to keep showing up, and to keep listening, and of course to keep being present even when it's hard. If you want to go deeper and learn about how all 9 Enneagram types communicate and how you work with those differences, I invite you to join me on September 17th for my free training. You can register at swansoncoaching.com/training. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. I would love to see you there. So until next time, remember, your words matter, and so does your presence. Stay curious, my friend.